Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video. And I'm going to start it off in Isaiah chapter 24, verses 7 to 11. The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry-hearted do sigh. The mirth of the tabret ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoice endeth, the joy of the harp ceaseth. They shall not drink wine with the song, strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it. And what does this sound like? People going through rough times, people not enjoying average everyday things because what? They're financially strapped to where they really got to count every dollar they have and make it last. People aren't going to the bars to celebrate anymore, if that. People are going to the bars or just staying at their houses to drink away their sorrows, etc., etc. The city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up that no man may come in. And that city of confusion is speaking of Babylon the Great, the United States of America. And Babylon in the Hebrew is Babel, or confusion, by mixing. And when you look at the United States of America, this is the most confused country on the face of the earth. Hey, how many pronouns are there at this point? I rest my case. But as it says, the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up that no man may come in. And we especially saw it during 2019 to 2021. A lot of, mom and pop and smaller businesses closing down. And right now, you've got a lot of businesses, on the edge of closing up shop. There's a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. And that crying for wine is not a crying for a bottle of Merlot, though a lot of people would like to be drinking that right now. That wine is talking about understanding. And you can see that a lot of people, a lot of these Americans out here are looking for answers to why things are just getting worse, from the economic condition, to the moral condition in this country, worried about World War III. Hence why a lot of these people have so much invested in this upcoming presidential election. If we even get there, people on both sides think that whichever candidate wins is going to decide the fate of their country, of this country. But I've got bad news for you. It doesn't matter. For one, the president is selected. He's not elected. Your vote doesn't count. And this city of confusion is only going to be broken down more and more. Economic conditions are going to get worse. Crime is going to get worse. There are going to be food shortages, pestilences, more LOCK downs, and ultimately World War III. And I opened up the video with these verses to preface an article on the the aptly titled economiccollapseblog.com, titled "The Percentage of Americans That Worry They Won't Be Able to Pay Their Bills is Higher Than It Was During the Great Recession." And hey, that's a perfect, image right there. That looks like somebody that is in a tough situation right now. What? The merry-hearted do sigh, the mirth of the tabret ceaseth, the joy of the land is gone, which is exactly what we're going to see in this article. A lot of Americans out here, which, hey, it's rough on my end, and I'm sure to anybody who's listening to this video, it's rough on your end as well. Hey, a lot of Americans are struggling out here. Prices are going up, from rent to food to car notes, gas, electricity, water, anything you pay bills on. And it's getting to the point to where for a lot of people, they have to decide, what bills am I going to pay this month And what bills am I going to default on? Do you remember how painful the Great Recession was? 2008 and the years immediately following were definitely a very dark chapter in our history, but a new study has actually found that the percentage of Americans that worry they won't be able to pay their bills is actually higher today than it was back then. Slakia. Slowly but surely, our economic strength has been fading and our standard of living has been falling. Unfortunately, now we have reached a point where a very large portion of the U.S. population is really struggling. According to a CNN poll that was just released, almost 40% of all U.S. adults say they worry most or all of the time that their family's income won't be enough to meet expenses. Many Americans regularly worry they won't be able to make ends meet. Nearly 4 in 10, 39% of U.S. adults say they worry most or all of the time that their family's income won't be enough to meet expenses, according to a new CNN poll that's up from 28% who expressed those concerns in December 2021, and it's similar to the numbers seen during the Great Recession. To cope, significant shares of Americans said they are adding side jobs, cutting down on driving, and putting more expenses on credit cards, and which is only making the situation worse out here. If you would have asked me before I saw the results, I would have been quite confident that the number during the Great Recession would have been higher than the number in 2024. Just like everyone else, I remember the Great Recession as such a painful time. Sadly, the economic pain that we are experiencing now is just the beginning. And what does it say in Matthew chapter 24, verse 8? All these are the beginning of sorrows. We're just in the beginning stages of Jacob's trouble right now. It's only going to get worse from here on out. Ordinary Americans from coast to coast are being absolutely crushed by rising prices, and that isn't going to change anytime soon. In an article that CNN posted about this new survey, one woman that works for the CDC, and you would think somebody working for, that institution would be making pretty decent money, admitted that she was recently forced to move because costs have risen so aggressively. The grocery store is just outrageous right now, but it's not just that. Everything has gone up. Clothing, my insurance, said Angela Russell, an Ohio resident who works as a program analyst at the Centers for Dis-Ease, CONTROL, and Prevention, CDC. Russell, who has 2 adult children and 3 grandkids, said she recently moved out of her rental home in Cincinnati in favor of one in a rural area where the rent is cheaper. Other surveys have come up with results that are even more alarming. For example, one discovered that a whopping 71% of Americans are stressed out about their ability to afford everyday expenses. 71% of Americans say they're stressed by their ability to afford everyday expenses. Americans most regularly spend money on groceries, phone bills, utilities, gasoline, and rent/mortgage payments. Grocery bills frustrate more than any other regular expense. Utilities, rent/mortgage payments, gasoline, and insurance payments round out the top 5 most annoying expenses, and that is most of the country. Now I'm going to go to Revelation chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 5 and read down to verse 6. And this is dealing with the so-called 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are just symbolic for different things that would be taking place in the last days. And when he had opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Verse 6, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And we're going to get that word penny in the Strongs, which is G1220, denarion. And in the outline of biblical usage, it says a Roman silver coin in New Testament times. It took its name from it being equal to 10 asses, which was a bronze coin that was later made out of copper. And what does that sound like? A currency de-evaluation, which is exactly what's happening to the US dollar right now. It's losing its value. And the United States of America is Rome reincarnated. A number after 217 BC increased to 16, about 3.898 grams or 0.1375 ounces. It was the principal silver coin of the Roman Empire. From the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, it would seem that a denarius was then the ordinary pay for a day's wages. And in the ancient world, and especially in the laws of the scriptures, a man was paid for the very same day he worked. It's not like this wicked system we live in now where most people are paid every 2 to 3 weeks. So, let's translate this to modern times. A measure of wheat, a groceries measure of barley for a penny. Going to the grocery store, paying your bills, your utilities, anything, costing damn near your entire paycheck because of what? Inflation, currency devaluation. And that's exactly what we're reading about in this article with these a growing number of Americans stressed out by this cost of living crisis we're currently living in. Again, the new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry-hearted do sigh. The mirth of tabrets ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoice endeth, the joy of the harp ceaseth. A lot of people, are more worried about, where their next meal is going to come from. Well, it hadn't gotten to that point yet, but it's getting to that point. A lot of people are wondering if they're going to be able to pay next month's rent, next month's utilities, their car notes, if they're going to get kicked out of their house. They don't have time to what? Enjoy, that average American, I work Monday to Friday and then go enjoy the weekend. And then just look at these holidays over the last couple of years, especially this year. You had a lot of people complaining that this last Christmas just was the worst Christmas in American history. There was no joy or mirth or Christmas spirit out here. Same thing with Thanksgiving, with New Year's, with Valentine's Day, etc., etc. These people have more important things to worry about. Survival. Unsurprisingly, younger generations are being hit particularly hard by the pain of inflation. Financial stress levels are highest among millennials, 77%, followed by Gen Z, 75%, and Gen X, 74%. Baby boomers reported experiencing the least financial stress, although at 59%, it was still more than half of those surveyed. Those that follow my work regularly know that I tend to rant about rising prices at the grocery store. Sometimes it is hard for me to believe that prices have gotten so high, and it appears that a lot of people out there agree with me. Another recent survey found that 80% of Americans have observed a notable increase in grocery store prices. A measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny. According to a study by Qualtrics on behalf of Intuit Credit Karma, 80% of Americans say they have felt a notable increase in the grocery costs in recent years. More than a quarter of respondents said the increased costs has led them to occasionally skip meals, while about 1/3 said they spend more than 60% of their monthly income on mandatory expenses such as food, utilities, and rent. Food has certainly become ridiculously expensive, but we actually spend far more money on housing. Today, the typical household spends about 12% of total income on food and about 33% of total income on housing. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the top three annual expenses for the average American household in 2022, the most recent available data, so you know it's gotten much worse over these last 2 years, were housing, 33.3%, transportation, 16.8%, and food, 12.8%. For most Americans, spending money in these areas is unavoidable. Housing costs have been rising much faster than the overall rate of inflation, and we just learned that home prices reached yet another new all-time record high last month. Home prices hit a new high in June for the second straight month, the latest sign that the housing market is unaffordable to millions of Americans. And what to say back in Isaiah 24, every house is shut up that no man may come in. And while that's, mainly talking about these businesses closing up, laying off workers, and going out of business, hey, with people not able to afford these houses, gonna have a lot of, vacant houses out here, doors being shut up to them. And then what? A lot of people that can no longer afford their rent or their mortgage getting kicked out of their houses. Housing costs have been rising much faster than the overall rate of inflation, and we just learned that home prices reached yet another new all-time record high last month. Home prices hit a new high in June for the second straight month, the latest sign that the housing market is unaffordable to millions of Americans. The spring home buying season, usually the busiest time of the year for the housing market, was a dud this year. Home sales declined in June for the fourth straight time on a monthly basis. The combination of high prices and elevated mortgage rates has made home ownership less attractive to renters and deterred current homeowners from moving. Meanwhile, homelessness in the United States is at the highest level ever recorded, and it has been growing at the fastest pace ever recorded. We just can't keep going on like this. Something has to give. It appears to be inevitable that all of this economic pain will have a dramatic impact on the upcoming election. At this point, approximately 3 out of every 5 Americans believe that we are already in a recession right now. You don't need to be a financial genius to know that times are tough for plenty of Americans. With that in mind, a majority of people actually think the economy is doing even worse than the experts say it is. 3 in 5 people believe that the U.S. is currently in recession, even though we're not officially in one, according to the financial definition, because, the economists and the powers that be have just moved the goalpost. If we were going by standards from, say, the 70s or the 80s, we would be in a recession. And best believe we're coming into the greatest depression of all. The survey of 2,000 Americans explored what's driving this lack of consumer confidence in the economy. Inflation and the rising cost of living. 68% topped the list of reasons why respondents believe the U.S. is in a recession, followed by friends and family members complaining about money, 50%. It is not an accident that this has happened. For more than a decade, people like me have been relentlessly warning that the decisions that our leaders were making would have disastrous consequences, and that is exactly what has happened. And if we stay on the path that we are on, which, hey, the powers that be, they ain't taking you off this path. They're driving this road all the way until the wheels fall off. It won't be too long before we witness a meltdown of absolutely epic proportions, which again is exactly what the powers that be, the elites such as the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers that truly run this country want. They want America foreclosed on so that they can much more easily bring in their great RESET, that fourth industrial revolution, that NW0, where you will own nothing and be happy and be on this digital cashless grid. This is Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, which is the end goal right here. And he causeth all, that he, being again those elites who are Edomites, or so-called white people, the wicked whom the earth has been given into the hands of in Job chapter 9, verse 24, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, everyone in society to receive a MARK in their right hand or in their foreheads, which is the RFID/NFC micro C-hip implant, which we can see that's right around the corner. You've got Neuralink, dealing with the forehead with Elon Musk, and you've got companies like Walletmore and many other companies that, and even in the mainstream news now, that are talking about the convenience of having a C-hip implant inside your body, and that no man might buy or sell, travel abroad, get a job, do anything in society, save he that has that charagma, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And with the elites, doing everything they can, to crash the dollar, make this cost of living crisis, painful for the people. Talks of bringing cyber attacks, LOCK downs, food shortages, etc., etc. What's that going to do? Create chaos on the streets. And what's they're saying? Ordo ab chaos, to bring that order out of the chaos, which is, again, this MARK. But before we get there, much more economic pain and suffering is coming, and it's going to get to the point where you're going to see civil unrest, rioting, murders, home invasions, any horrific crime you can think about take place on the streets of America, whether from people, criminals just taking an opportunity of the situation, or a lot of these average Americans out here who can no longer afford anything, who have been kicked out of their houses and have to watch themselves or their family members starve, taking matters into their own hands. Now I'm going to close it out in 2 Esdras chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses, home invasions, with the sword. And the modern day sword, especially in America, is what? The gun. And spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, which, food shortages, famines are coming, and for great tribulation, all these different calamities that are going to be taking place on the streets of America and hell, globally, because we are coming into the times of Jacob's trouble, which are going to be worse than any other point you can think of in human history. But actually, let's get that real quick before we close out. This is Jeremiah 30, verse 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the times of Jacob's trouble. Actually, let me see. I'll start at verse 5. For thus saith Yahweh, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. And that whole article was filled with fear. People fearing how they're going to be able to afford, to pay their bills for the next month. You've got people out here fearing over the presidential election, economic collapse, World War III. Ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Where do I see every man with his hands on his loins, and as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness? Everybody out here, from the toughest, UFC, bodybuilder, whatever, Billy Badass out here, all the way to the weakest person, is going to be in a state of terror with these calamities that the Most High is about to bring for judgment for all the wickedness you people have been committing. Verse 7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. As it further says in 2 Esdras 8 verse 50, for many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter times, for they have walked in great pride, but he shall be saved out of it. And that he is speaking of the elect of the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel consisting of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as the Israelite foreigners who look like these heathens, the elect, and the 1/3 of the elect in America who during this grace period right now have turned back to their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, so that they can hope to be saved out of these calamities of Jacob's trouble, which are quickly coming our way. But that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.